Right. So, an update video for you. This is about Louisiana wanting to put the Ten Commandments into public schools, which is horribly unconstitutional. You don't even have to do fancy interpretation to, you actually have to do fancy interpretation to actually think that this is constitutional. But let's get to the update. Louisiana won't take official steps to implement a law requiring the Ten Commandments be placed in all of the state's public school classrooms until at least November, as a lawsuit makes its way through the courts, according to an agreement approved by a federal judge Friday. The suit was filed in June by parents of Louisiana public school children with various religious backgrounds who said the law violates First Amendment language forbidding government establishment of religion and guaranteeing religious liberty. Backers of the law argue that the Ten Commandments belong in the classrooms because the commandments are historical and a part of the foundation of U.S. law. I'm sorry. One of the Ten Commandments says, I am your God and you will have no other gods above me. Exactly what part of U.S. law is that one? Not to mention the fact that, yes, it's historical, but you know what else is historical? Mein Kampf. Nobody is going to, well, actually, today's Republicans might, but generally nobody's going to insist that Mein Kampf be studied in public schools. Except for maybe universities where you're learning about history and potentially, specifically, Hitler and Nazism. But the point is that just because it's historical does not mean you should be, basically putting it in neon lights and emphasizing it. Yes, it's historical. All right, you want to teach the Bible as history? Fine. We can do a comparative religious class and we can learn about the Bible. But that's not what they want. They want to indoctrinate people. But this is one of the many arguments and supposed values that the Republicans have that are just coming together full force. Their insistence on they want the Ten Commandments to be forced into public schools, but at the same time, they're the ones who are always, pounding their chests about parental rights. They're the ones who are always pounding their chests about religious freedom. I'm sorry. The Ten Commandments are part of the Old Testament. They are religious. And even though they're, Jews and Muslims also follow parts of the Old Testament. I don't know how much of the Old Testament is in the Torah, if that isn't the complete one, or if there's more to it, and I have no idea about the Quran. I know that the Quran acknowledges parts of the Old Testament, but whether they acknowledge it full force, not a clue. But it's identified as a Christian thing. Because Jews generally don't insist on having the Ten Commandments posted anywhere. Actually, I don't know if that's even posted in a frickin' synagogue. I might be wrong about that, but not that I'm aware of. So yes, they are historical, and there are parts of the Ten Commandments that are in U.S. law. However, not the religious parts. Adultery is not against the law. Well, I guess it used to be. but not anymore. Yes, we have thou shalt not kill, but that has absolutely zero to do with the Ten Commandments, because that's just a good social contract. It's kind of hard to have a society when everybody's killing each other. You know, you don't need the Ten Commandments to tell you that. And again, as I mentioned before, the founding fathers were deists. They were not these Christian nationalists that we have today who seem to think that the Christian God needs to be worshipped at all times. They don't do that because they did not believe in the Christian God. So, for those who don't know, deism basically says God created the universe and then retired. He has absolutely nothing to do with the goings on of anything in the universe, and certainly not humans. So, I'm not sure how you square that with this idea that this was a foundation of U.S. law. Because maybe one or two made it into U.S. law, but there was no... The First Amendment actually contradicts, I am your God and you shall have no gods above me. Because the U.S. Constitution says, the First Amendment says, no, people have religious liberty and they can believe in whatever God they choose. Or no God. Because you cannot have religious liberty without being allowed to not have a religion. So, no. But yes, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see which side, because you know this is going to make it to the Supreme Court. So which side is going to win out? Those who want to shove religion down our throats under any by any means, or are they going to stick with their parental rights and see that there are parents who are like, don't like this, and notice they said various religious backgrounds. So I'm sure a lot of these parents are Christian, because, okay, it's great that your religion is being put out there, but which interpretation of your religion? Because there are hundreds of denominations. So which denomination's being pushed here? So yeah, that could get to a slippery slope, and a lot of people notice that. The Louisiana law requires the commandments be posted no later than January 1st, a deadline unaffected by Friday's agreement. The deal assures that the defendants in the lawsuit, state education officials, and several local school boards will not post the commandments in classrooms before November 15th and won't make rules governing the law's implementation before then. Lester Doohy? I'm not sure. A spokesman for Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill said the defendants agreed to not take public-facing compliance measures until November 15th to provide time for briefs, arguments, and a ruling. Well, at least somebody cares about the rule of law. Except for the fact that the law that they are pushing is patently unconstitutional, but they believe in courts, so that's something. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a similar Kentucky law violated the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which says Congress can make no law respecting an establishment of religion. The High Court found that the law had no secular purpose, but rather served a plainly religious purpose. And again, like I said, yes, there are some some of our laws that just so happen to be a commandment. But most of the commandments are, I shouldn't say religious, but morality type commandments, which laws, it maybe at one time they did, but shouldn't get involved in, because you can't legislate morality. If you think something is immoral, fine. Don't do it. Don't force your morality on other people. As long as people's morality doesn't affect you, no problem at all. In 2005, the Supreme Court held that such displays in a pair of Kentucky courthouses violated the Constitution. At the same time, the court upheld a Ten Commandments marker on the grounds of the Texas State Capitol in Austin. I'm assuming because they had other documents there and not just the Ten Commandments. If I recall correctly, that's how it goes. Now, I'm worried about this Supreme Court because they have a lot more religious nutbags on the court. So, I am concerned about the Supreme Court, but it surprised me before, so who knows? Maybe once it gets to that point, the Supreme Court is going to strike down this law. Who knows? Louisiana's new law does not require school systems to spend public money on Ten Commandments posters. Well, at least that. It allows the system to accept donated posters or money to pay for the displays. Now, granted, that is an improvement that the people of Louisiana's tax dollars are not going to this BS, but at the same time, you are still showing favoritism to a religion. Now, I've seen a comment about how Jews and Muslims also follow the Ten Commandments, and like I said, I don't know if that's true, but even if it is, even if it's just a 30% of students who fall out of that Judeo-Christian framework. All right, so you're saying that those 30% could just screw themselves? That their views don't matter because they're not a majority? I just don't understand what that argument is trying to point out. Because there are people who, don't want to read, I am your God and you will have no gods above me. They don't want to be reminded that this is because let's face it, even though the argument had been made by someone I read in the comments that Jews, Muslims, and Christians all follow the Ten Commandments. Who do you associate the Ten Commandments with? Yes, that's right, Christians. Because again, Jews aren't banging down the doors of public schools demanding that the Ten Commandments be put in public schools. Actually, neither are Muslims. So even if they do follow it, they follow it the way, ironically, the way Jesus taught, on their own, in private. Which, it just boggles my mind how many Christians claim to be good Christians and ignore the fact that Jesus said, do not be like those hypocrites and show your religious views in public and pray in public. Do it in private. So, yeah, there is that. The law also specifically authorizes but does not require other postings in public schools, including the Mayflower Compact. Okay. Yeah. which was signed by religious pilgrims aboard the Mayflower in 1620 and is often referred to as America's first Constitution. The irony. The Pilgrims came here to flee religious persecution, ignoring that the Puritans are absolutely batshit insane, but the Pilgrims came here because they were escaping religious persecution. So now we're going to make those who aren't your brand of Christian, not just Christian, but your brand of Christian, feel unwelcome. Yeah, that's a great way to show respect for the Mayflower Compact. Awesome. The Declaration of Independence, okay, and the Northwest Ordinance. What? Why? Which established a government in the Northwest Territory in the present-day Midwest and created a pathway for admitting new states to the Union. Okay. Actually, if they required the Mayflower Compact and the Northwest Ordinance, that would actually give them a bigger leg to stand on, because they're not just posting the Ten Commandments, but it's not being required. It's just authorized. And number two, okay, well, it's still a religious document. Those two are not. So, yeah. At least I don't think the Mayflower Compact is. It's been forever since I read the Mayflower Compact. I think I was in elementary school. So yeah, it's been a minute. The legal challenge to the law came soon after it was signed by Republican Governor Jeff Landry, a Republican who succeeded two-term Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards in January. Landry's inauguration marked a full takeover of state government by the GOP, in a Bible Belt state where the party already held every statewide elected position and a supermajority in the legislature. Well, that's not ominous at all. So that is the end of that article. And I can't think of anything else I needed to add, but yeah, I'm sure Louisiana is... Well, I don't know how badly gerrymandered they are, because, they did have a Democratic governor not that long ago. So, maybe Louisiana's going to look at what's happening, and the next time there's an election, like, say, November, they're going to vote a lot of these fucks out, because, if nothing else, Louisiana now has to spend taxpayer dollars to defend an unconstitutional law. Even if you get to the Supreme Court and they side with Louisiana, you're still paying taxpayer dollars to do this. I'm sure that there are plenty of taxpayers who are like, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to this bullshit. I'm just gonna vote you fuckers out. At least that's what I hope happens. That as religious as these people are, that they also understand that forcing religion down other people's throats, not the best plan. So anyway, that is all I have for this video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.